917 million voters. This was the total number of eligible voters in 2019 general elections. 5 years down the line, now we are going to have our next general elections, 2024 general elections, where more than 100 million voters are going to cast their vote. What actually influences Indian voters? What actually captures the imagination of Indian voters? As an individual, what should inspire me to go and cast my vote? Putting these questions into perspective is the whole objective of today's NewsKase. Meanwhile, you might be aware, assembly elections are going on in multiple states like Mizoram, Chhattisgarh, Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, and Telangana. Let's get started. The most important question, why do we vote? And this has a number of answers. There is no objective answer where you can pinpoint one exact solution to this. And based on this subjectivity, we have different theories that explain pattern of voting dynamics in India, not just in India, but throughout the world. These are 5-6 theories we are going to discuss in today's class, starting from civic duty theory to rational choice theory, expressive voting theory, social identity theory, and retrospective voting theory. How this influences Indian voters, that is going to be our prime focus of discussion. Starting with the first and the most important theory, that is the civic duty theory. Recently, the Times of India has conducted a survey. It asked a huge collection of people, why do they go and cast their vote? And the most highlighted element of answer to this question, why do they cast their vote? Because people think it is their duty to cast their vote. Because people think it is their duty towards the nation to be a part of the democratic polity. The sense of duty that voting in an elections brings to it. That is one of the most important factors that brings people into this electoral booth. A sense of duty you can define in these aspects. Every citizen has certain responsibilities that they must fulfill to maintain the well-being of their community and promote growth. So it is people's contribution to well-being of their community as well as for the growth of the society. People considers election as their contribution to the community. And this has been the most dominant factor that brings people into the electoral booths. When we speak about duty, we have legal duties as fundamental duties under the Article 51A of the Constitution. It has been recommended by the Soren Singh Committee. Does it have right to vote or duty to vote in elections as a fundamental right? No, it doesn't. If it doesn't have a duty to vote in elections as a fundamental duty, then where does the source of the duty comes from? The source of people's sense of duty to vote, you can attribute it to different factors. And the most important factor is nothing but the Constitution of India and the rights guaranteed to people under Constitution of India. Recently, there has been a case going on in the Supreme Court. You might be aware of this, on setting the terms and conditions, setting the selection criteria of election commissioners of India. And Supreme Court has came up with a certain directives like Prime Minister, Leader of Opposition in Lok Sabha, and Supreme Court Judge. This high power committee will select election commissioners. So based on this case, there has been so much of discussion whether right to vote, is a fundamental right? Is it a legal right? Is it a constitutional right? What is the status of right to vote in India? And the answer to this question is, currently it is a constitutional right under Article 326. If you go to the recent judgment in that Election Commission of India case, you can see a differencing opinion judgment by Justice Rastogi. He brought into the picture, he extrapolated the right to vote as a part of fundamental right of right to expression under Article 19. as well as he directs right to vote as a part of fundamental existence with dignity. That means article to life and personal liberty under Article 21. So you can say that the roots of right to vote in a liberal democracy like India, it stems from fundamental rights of Article 19 and Article 21, which somehow is the most important fundamental rights. Going ahead, various judgment has been carried out throughout the years on right to vote and legal aspects associated with this. One of the most recent influential judgment, People's Union for Civil Liberties versus Union of India case. More famously, this case is known as the Nota case. And what does this Nota case says about? It brings the option of none of the above option. You cannot vote to any of the candidates and you can select the Nota option in elections. Since 2014, we have this election of Nota. So the idea of voting, the idea of expressing dissent in voting, so that has been expanded. That has been given a people's face through different Supreme Court judgments. What can be the other sources of people's sense to duty? One of the most important is contribution by the government as well as other independent agencies like Election Commission of India. In 2019, the campaign No Voter to be Left Behind. It focused on physically challenged people, focuses on other tribal isolated societies where the right to vote is becoming a challenge to carry out in itself. So the focus has been too much infrastructural and other focus has been given on these societies, these kind of people, and the attempt has been made to bring these people into ambit of voting. So this positive effort from Election Commission to from governments, from authorities, this also create a sense of duty within society, within people, which strengthen Indian democratic process. Going ahead, let's discuss some other theories, some other motivations, some other influences in electioneering. And one of the most important factor, that is rational choice theory. What does rational choice theory means? It considers all the stakeholders. That means whether it is a voter who is going into the booth or whether it is the political candidates or the political party. Everyone is rational beings and they have taken decision based on the cost and benefit analysis. Whom to vote? You do the cost to analysis and based on this you put your votes. Whether to vote or not vote, that will also go into this cost to benefit analysis. One of the classical example of rational choice theory you can see in the subset of this theory, that is prospective voting theory. You put forward certain ideas that can be seen as the future, that is the rational future of the nation. You can see one of the most influential campaigns in Indian electioneering. That is the Achhe Din campaign launched by Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2014. It doesn't matter, I'm even not going into the debate of whether people have got the Achhe Din or not. 10 years down the line. But the impact it created on the psyche of people, that create a rational thinking that this government can do much better to the people compared to the existing governments of the time. Going ahead, you can see similar rational choice theory reflections in other elections also. In 2019 elections, increase in number of women voters. This has been considered as one of the influential factors in bringing back BJP into the power. A lot of analysis by Election Commission of India points to this direction. You can see certain analysis why almost at national level we have parity in men and women voting. Almost in every state where BJP was in power in 2019, you can see women voters outnumbering men voters. And this is a rarity in Indian elections. Now, what is the rational analysis for this? Certain number of factors has been listed, including women-centric schemes like the Ujjwala Yojana, Swachh Bharat Mission, which all have huge amount of women participation, women beneficiaries, economic empowerment through Jan Dhan Yojana, Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, etc. Social reforms like criminalization of triple talaq and various DBT schemes which has been directly entitled to women members of the family. So these kind of social reorientation, keeping women at the center, this has brought so much importance and focus to women voters. And this has been reflected in voting pattern as well as the quantity of votes being casted. Now this has been highlighted as one of the key factors in bringing BJP back to power. Another example, now if you expand this beyond that, we will get the example of politics of freebies. In the recent past, you might have seen AAP Aam Aadmi Party trying to expand its influence throughout India, playing a critical role in Gujarat elections, other elections, by expanding its free electricity, free water, free travel, all these policies to different parts of India. Various financial analysts like NewsKase has came up with stark remarks on dangers of expanding the freebie culture. When Prime Minister has spoken about the dangers of revelry culture. Being said, the critical question here is, what exactly can be called as freebies? We had a mixed economic system where even after the LPG reforms of 1991, states even today does play a major role in delivery of services. When Right to Education Act was passed, when Right to Employment Act was passed, when Right to Food Act was passed, it was not considered as freebies. Now, why certain other aspects when offered by state governments are considered as freebies? Where will you draw the line between responsibilities of the state and freebie or revelry culture? Now, this plays a major important role. This line defines what is the responsibilities of the state, and this line defines what can be fiscally or legally acceptable and what is not. So here also this influences Indian voters, because people find a rational reason in freebies also, whether it is farm loan waivers, whether it is distribution of power, whether it is distribution of essential XYZ of life. People find a rational benefit to them out of freebies. Let's go to some other interesting theories. Now, so far our discussion has been on rationality, sense of duty, constitutional aspects. Now slightly move into identity politics. Identity politics has its own repercussions or its own reflections in Indian electioneering. One of the most important theories is the expressive voting theory, where voting is seen primarily as a form of self-expression rather than a strategic act to influence policy outcomes. Now here comes the danger. So far we have been doing the analysis between parties, between different stakeholders based on their capacity to influence, to bring in certain policies, to implement certain policies. Now the whole debate is being dislodged and taken away to self-expression. You can see these reflections of these kind of politics within national parties, within people itself. Let's take some example. One classical example is people voting to left parties in Kerala. You can see so many huge section of society in Kerala who, irrespective of what the government is doing good or bad, they have their tendencies to vote for left parties. Now, where this allegiance is coming from? This left has been associated with social movements and progressive policies in Kerala. Like whatever the Kerala has achieved so far in social indicators, education, health, social status, all this has been associated with certain left-wing policies that was implemented in 1960s, 1970s. Which are these policies? Mainly the Land Reforms Act, mainly the education bill, mainly the investments done in primary health care. So all these have somewhere associated with left-wing politics or left-wing parties, contributions of left-wing parties. So this identity of left-wing parties has resulted in getting huge political mileage even after decades. Another, we are expansion of identity politics. You can kindly associate it with social identity theory, where we identify with certain groups that we belong to. Here also the identity in expressive voting theory, the major dynamics of identity was related to politics. The political contributions of this party has led to different kind of political associations of the people. Now we are going away, completely away from the politics, where completely the social, economic and other identities of people are being mobilized to certain kind of voting, certain kind of influences in voting of communities. One of the most notable example of this is the caste politics or caste politicization of the caste. You can see the reflections in whole parts of the politics in whole parts of the country. Maybe we call it as Mandal politics, which strengthened the caste politics in India in later 1980s and 90s, which resulted in 27% reservation to OBCs, expansion of reservation in education and government jobs. Today, the reflections you can see in the demand for caste politics. And one of the striking aspects is that development you can notice here is throughout the 1980s, 1990s, when regional parties like RJD, JDU, when these parties were demanding for greater and greater caste representation, caste reservations, the party which was opposing caste-based politics was the Congress party. But today we have a total new kind of political environment where Congress is at the forefront of demanding caste census. Congress is trying to champion the caste cause in Indian politics of the coming future. Going ahead, you can associate this with the high octane religious nationalism politics of BJP. One of the striking aspects of identity politics or social identity politics is that you are completely dividing political parties of political analysis. What the party does politically is being completely taken off the radar. The whole dynamics of electioneering, the whole dynamics of casting vote is reduced to religious identity. Now this brings another challenges, a huge set of challenges to even the democratic culture in India. Next, we have one more theory, that is the retrospective voting theory. What it does is, it assumes that people vote based on their assessment of recent past and not on the hopes of future. It gives a much more realistic picture to the voters. People are not too much worried about future. What people does is, in the recent past, how has been the performance of the government, they cast their vote on these dynamics. One of the most important example is the anti-incumbency waves you can see in different states. Recent Karnataka elections, where the BJP has lost the ground to Congress. Anti-incumbency waves. Local corruptions has influenced, recent developments has influenced too much the voting behavior of the people. This theory is called retrospective voting theory. So what we have discussed so far is what influences the voting aspects or voting dynamics in India. We have five different theory, around 5-6 theories we have discussed in this regard. Now let's discuss another set of voters, that is people who are not going to vote. And one of the classic examples of or substantiating elements of people who are not going to vote is the public choice theory. Again, this theory, public choice theory, starts with the assumption. We already started our discussion with giving rational figures to the voters. Now, this theory says that people are not just rational, they are self-interest oriented. Rationality and self-interest, these are the key factors that is going to play a role in deciding election behavior of people. Similar to the earlier case, people will do a cost-benefit analysis, where what exactly are the cost of voting and what exactly are the benefits the voting bring to the people. It is based on these analysis people are going into vote. Now the danger comes when this theory has been extrapolated to bring out the paradox of not voting. The theory says that actually your vote doesn't matter. The theory says that the cost of voting is much greater than the benefits of voting. The theory says that it is better for a rational and self-interested oriented individual, it is better not to vote. And what are the arguments of this theory? The argument is probability of casting a decisive vote in large elections is extremely low. Most of our constituency have lakhs of members, lakhs of voters. Theory is saying that a single individual trying to influence these elections where lakh of people are coming and voting, that is negligible. Doesn't matter whether you go and vote or whether you not go and vote. The result is going to be the same. The second argument, difference in utility of candidates is very low. See, classic example, you can again take the example of Kerala. Kerala, most of the elections are fight between Congress and its allies versus the communist parties. Now, when you are voting for Lok Sabha elections, who is your MP, whether he is from Congress or from communist, it absolutely doesn't matter. At least in national policy making, in the current context, it has no relevance whatsoever whether his MP is from communist or from Congress. Because at national level, the whole political dynamics is different. So, and third aspect, obviously, election, voting, casting vote has its cost. Has its cost of time, cost of effort, cost of money. At least if you are located at some other place, you have to come to your booth and cast your vote. So all this cost your money, all this cost has opportunity cost associated with this. So due to these factors, this theory says that it is better for a rational and self-interested oriented individual to not vote in the elections. But is it ethical for an individual to do so? As a student of ethics, is it ethical to not vote in elections? It's a question that you should answer. So these are the aspects, these are the different theories we have discussed in today's class. And this brings us to the multi-billion question. Why do you cast your vote? What influences you most to put your vote in elections? I want all of you to comment in the comment section. What brings you to the election booth? On that note, we will wind up the session. Thank you so much.